there's not only one way to do things. Sometimes the way that you were taught might not even be what works for you in the long run. And I guess the overarching lesson there was just keep an open mind at all times and try as much stuff as possible.
Welcome to episode 111 of the Bass Shed podcast. My name is Ryan Roberts. All right, what's up, folks? I got a new bass. This happened. I feel like this is a safe space to where I can talk about that. Yeah, I got a new bass. I had been scrolling Reverb for I don't know, it seemed like months, just on Reverb nonstop, just scrolling. This all started because Dan Lakin had sent me a 4-string to check out, and I kind of had it. I had it for a couple of years. I feel like I don't even know how long I had it. Felt like a long time. It was definitely over a year and a half. You know what I mean? It was maybe closer to 2.5 years. No idea. Had the bass a while. Dan hits me up. He's like, yo, man, send me the bass back. All right, cool. Now, I have 0 4-strings at this point. I'm like, gotta do something about this. And I have to do something about the fact that I don't own a P bass, right? I gotta do something about both of these things. So I'm on Reverb nonstop. I was scrolling through basses, and I didn't want to drop a bunch of money. I use the 4-string mainly to teach. Yeah, that's mainly what I use the 4-string for. And so I didn't want to drop a bunch of money. So I'm scrolling through, I'm looking at spending about $1,000. Not crazy money. I'm scrolling through looking at basses, and I'm coming across all these P basses that look interesting to me. And a lot of them are active. And I don't want an active, I definitely do not want an active P bass. To me, it's not a P bass. You know what I mean? I'm a bit of a purist at times. I pick and choose when I'm going to be a purist, but this is one of the times where I'm a purist. And so I do not want an active P bass. I'm looking around. Finally find a PJ Deluxe. And, that I order, shows up, cool, way punchier than I thought it was going to be. I got to say that. I played some workshops over at Los Angeles College of Music. I took the bass there to that was the maiden voyage with the bass. Hadn't even really checked, I had played it, but I hadn't plugged it in and really did any kind of deep dive on it. So I took it into the college. Super punchy. So far, really, really happy with it. I do think I might have got vibed a little bit. Because it's not an American-made bass. I also know that it's going to just be a hobby to just continue to just mod it like crazy. I know that's gonna happen. I'm gonna play on it for a little while like it is, and then probably start making some executive decisions about what stays and what goes. And that's just going to be this revolving door kind of project base that I can continue to tinker with to amuse myself. Yeah, that's what that's going to be. So that happened. Double bassist. I'm sure you're all hip to the International Society of Bassists. The ISB convention is coming up starting June 5th in Michigan. I had been planning, actually. I'd been planning on attending, but, gigs and such kind of got in the way. So, oops, won't be making it to Michigan. A little bit bummed about that. I was speaking with the folks at Lemur about ISB the other day, and they told me they are running a sale to acknowledge the bass event. So, stop by lemurmusic.com and use the promo code ISB23. Right, ISB23 for 15% off all regularly priced items. Bows, cases, sheet music, rosin. I mean, come on, it's summer. We all know what that means. That means your rosin probably melted, and it's time for a new cake of it. Stop by lemurmusic.com. Use the promo code ISB23 to replace the melted rosin. The Bass Shed Academy is proud to have partnered with the Kahuna Cares Foundation Kahuna Cares Foundation raises funds to support organizations that benefit and enrich the lives of children, teens, and adults with special needs. On August 26th, they are holding the 6th annual Kahuna Concert for a Cause. A portion of the proceeds from this event will support music education and music appreciation programs for those with special needs through the Bayshed Academy, to purchase tickets for the concert and to enrich the lives of others. Visit kahunacares.org. Again, the date of the concert is August 26th. In other news about the Bayshed Academy, on June 24th, we'll be holding our summer workshops at Lemur Music. These are student-driven workshops. In the morning will be the classical workshop with Marlon Martinez. Moving into the afternoon and early evening, I'll be teaching the jazz workshop and the electric bass workshop. You can visit thebayshedacademy.org, click on programs, scroll down to where it says summer workshops. Boom, click on that again. There you can get more information and you can register. June 24th, the summer bass workshops. On the episode is PJ Cinque. PJ is a member of the San Diego Symphony and an organizer of the San Diego Bass Fest. PJ works with another member of the symphony. Man, like how many times did I do this? PJ works with another member of the symphony, Aaron Blick, to organize a 5-day bass event in San Diego. That is the San Diego Bass Fest. PJ is a native New Yorker and will speak about how he ended up in San Diego, some early inspirations as a bassist and musician, and chat about the San Diego Bass Fest. I had a great time talking with PJ. He had some moments early on in his development that were really cool to hear about, and it's also great to hear about his efforts to pay it forward. You know what I mean? To give those opportunities to younger generation. Wonderful hang. It was a wonderful hang, and here it is. Here's my chat with PJ Cinque. Cool, how you doing, man?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing well. Low-key day. You don't have anything going on today?
I have a student to teach, but other than that, pretty low-key.
Killing. You teach at your house or your own studio?
I teach at my house.
Okay. Cool, man. Let's dig into the let's start by hearing like we talked on the phone the other day. I know a little bit about your background. But share with the community where you come from and how'd you end up in San Diego?
Well, like many orchestral musicians, you take a lot of auditions and you kind of end up where you land.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what happened to me. I'm originally from Long Island, and I went to school. I did undergrad and master's at Juilliard, and then when I was finishing my master's, I was kind of scared about the future and jumping into the freelance scene in New York City when I really wanted to win an audition. And I thought it might be best to try to stay in school in some kind of program, keep working on stuff, just to kind of like delay the inevitable of entering the real world in one way or another. So my teacher at the time, Laszlo, he lived in Cincinnati and taught at CCM and would fly into the city on the weekends to teach at Juilliard. So I went to CCM for an artist diploma, which, kind of like a victory lap for me. Yeah. I never actually got the artist diploma. I did the 2 years of school, but I was taking so many auditions and I had to decide, do I want to do a recital or take auditions? I couldn't really do both. So
sure.
I never did the recital and I just left school, and then I was out there for 2 years freelancing, playing in a bunch of orchestras. I taught at Capital University in Columbus, Ohio, and I took auditions. I took a lot of auditions, and it was great living in Cincinnati because you could drive to everything. Everything I took was pretty close.
Okay. Is there that many symphonies out there to audition for? Well,
for the professional orchestras, I was driving a good distance. I mean, I
Okay.
drove to Kansas City,
Okay.
Nashville, Atlanta,
Okay. So they weren't
Troy.
necessarily short commutes. Like you were driving, but
No,
they were still
no,
they were
they
still road
weren't.
trips. Yeah. Okay.
They were road trips, but at that time I was just doing like freelance gigs and
Yeah.
kind of the Freeway Philharmonic. I didn't really have a whole lot of money, so doing the drive was, well, number one, it was less risky
Yeah.
than flying with the bass because
Of course.
that's always a stressful thing. But it was a
Sure.
little cheaper because I could keep my budget a little more under control.
Right.
And honestly, it was cool. Like I got to see other parts of the country. I got to visit other cities and kind of like take my time a little bit. I wasn't on
That's cool.
as much of a time crunch to get to and from the airport.
Right.
So yeah, and then I auditioned for San Diego in February 2015. That was the only audition I flew to when I lived in Ohio,
Okay.
and it worked out,
Nice.
thankfully. And I've been here since I moved here June of 2015, so just about 8 years.
Now, not to, uh, you know, I don't know what the word is or the phrase is. Not to say that San Diego wasn't, a choice, but is there a specific symphony that would have been like the top choice? Like if all planets had aligned, you would have landed at that gig?
Ah, man, it's hard to say. I
And we,
at
we
the
can edit this
time,
out. We can edit this out so that like, it doesn't fall back on San Diego Symphony at all. But
no,
I'm just
no, no,
personally curious because
no.
there's always
I
like,
didn't.
I feel like everybody's got like the, oh man, that's the one, that's the gig. Like I want that gig.
When I left New York, I mean, I lived in New York City for 6 years, and I
Yeah.
grew up not far from there. So that was all I knew was New York, and,
Okay.
and specifically like the metropolitan area. And I was a little jaded at that time. You kind of feel like New York is the center of the universe.
Sure.
So when I left there and moved out to Ohio, I always had kind of a dream to, oh, I would love to just get into the New York Philharmonic and heroically move back to New York. But
Yeah. Some kind
after,
of prodigal son story.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But after I lived in Ohio for that amount of time, especially near the end of my time there, I really grew to love it and kind of like separated myself from that feeling of New York being the epicenter of the world. And I found that so many other places were great places to live and work. So by that time, I was just grateful for a job anywhere. It didn't really matter to me. I wanted to win an audition and then
Yeah.
just set my life up based on wherever I was at the time.
Now I do think like I'm originally from Phoenix and like living now in Los Angeles and working as a bass player in Los Angeles. And I have friends in New York and some other major music towns. There's typically this thing that I've noticed where a lot of people will have this like if you're not in one of these like five major music cities within the country, you can't really play or you're not really making it happen or this and that. How has being not in New York changed your perspective on that? Where like you realize that like people in other places can still play at the caliber of these major music cities.
Oh man, it was beyond just that. It was, yes, it was
Yeah.
that realizing that in any of these cities, but also that not only do some cities somewhat have a little bit of like you learn the flavor and the style of that city, but people in that city are coming from other places that weren't
Right.
New York. So I was learning lots of new stuff left and right that I didn't
Okay.
necessarily learn in New York,
Mm.
maybe by chance, maybe because it wasn't available, but that really broadened my horizons a lot,
Yeah.
realizing that not only are there amazing bass players all over the country and all over the world, but people know a lot more than I do and have a lot to share that I or anybody could benefit from.
What are some of those nuggets that you picked up from different geographical locations?
Um,
If you can pinpoint it, or maybe it's just kind of a cultural thing that you absorbed more than it was something, a direct lineage of somebody said something or
can't really pick one out off the top of my head.
yeah.
It might have been more, but I mean, maybe I was more aware of it a couple of years ago. But just the general sentiment that there's not only one way to do things, and sometimes the way that you were taught might not even be what works for you in the long run.
Mm.
And I guess the overarching lesson there was just keep an open mind at all times and try
Yeah.
as much stuff as possible and continue to try stuff, because I'm even finding now things that I tried in the past that didn't necessarily work, or maybe I didn't give it a full try, actually holds a lot more water for me now. So
Does that relate more to being a professional or actual technical things on the instrument?
I was thinking more specifically more technical things on the instrument.
Okay.
But professionally, there's always stuff to learn too.
Sure.
I mean,
Sure.
sometimes you step in holes and you learn lessons.
Yeah. Truth. Absolutely. Absolutely. So how long then you landed the job in 2015? You're still with the San Diego Symphony. How many players are in that section?
We have 7. The orchestra has 7, and
Okay.
as of this year, this is our first season since I've been there where we've had all 7 spots
Oh wow.
filled with full-time players.
Oh wow.
We had a couple of people. My first year, somebody retired, and then we had another guy in the section, Jory Herman, who actually, when we start talking about Bass Fest, he's the godfather of Bass
Okay.
Fest.
He
He went
spearheaded
on
that
to-
and originated it. Okay.
Right. And then, between the pandemic and all the time that passed before that, we just hadn't had an audition. But last year we had an audition and we hired 2 phenomenal players. And I mean, I learned so much from them every day at work. They're really amazing players, amazing guys, and we're really lucky to have them.
Killing. I was in San Diego not that long ago, just as like whatever. We were going to Coronado Island or something as like a day trip. Do you guys play in that shell right behind the Civic Center?
Yeah, that's our outdoor venue. It's amazing.
It looks really cool.
It's super cool. I mean, it's gotten us through the pandemic. I mean, we're one of the only cities in the country that the orchestra could play outdoors most of the year. So during all that time, when we could have been indoors dealing with a lot of the safety precautions, we were able to do it outdoors, and it was a little bit easier to manage.
So then, did you guys stay working through the quarantine and everything because it was outdoors, or like an amphitheater?
Yeah, we didn't start working. Man, it was weird. I mean, the first thing we started working at, like after the lockdown, was October 2021, I think, or 2020. I can't remember. Maybe it was 2020. But we did an outdoor opera in the parking lot of the sports arena down here. But the shell was finished. I think we were on stage there March of 21.
Okay.
Doing stuff like, spaced out and everything.
Yeah. Is that a recent fixture? Like, is it recently built? Is that a newer?
Yeah, it's like a year old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, maybe 2 years old, actually.
Okay. All right. That's cool. It's a really cool looking thing. Like, I was just, whatever, we caught this little boat to the island, and I'm like, oh, man, that looks really dope. And then learned about what it was. Like,
yeah, that's our home. I mean, in the past, we had a summer season where they would, in that area, they would build a stage and then take it down at the end of the season. But our organization worked with the Port of San Diego and had the shell built, but it's also a public park. So during non-concert times, people can just come and sit and listen. Yeah. And during concert times, they fence off the seating area, but the sidewalk around it is open. So you can just walk around during a concert.
Oh, cool.
And the idea is that it's something for all of San Diego to share, especially when we're there.
Yeah.
Which has been a lot of the time.
That's awesome. When is the parameters of your season? When does it start and when does it end?
Our winter season, the symphony year starts in July. And then we have July and August are like the summer season out at the shell, and then we have September off, and then we go October to May as the winter season.
Oh wow, okay.
And then we have June off, so and then we start the cycle all over again.
So it's pretty year round then, just with these two kind of major breaks. Yep. That's awesome. How did you get involved with the Bass Fest? So you moved there in 15. It's already when did the Bass Fest start? When did Jory establish this?
The summer of 2016 was the first one.
Oh, okay.
So he had a vision for I guess like a bass centric workshop festival that would sort of energize and unite the bass community in San Diego and beyond,
Yeah.
if possible. And it was a little bit of a smaller operation then,
Hmm.
but it was still, I believe, we still did it Tuesday through Saturday. We
Okay.
had mostly local faculty, but we Andres Martin came,
Hmm.
so he was kind of like the non-local guy, but still pretty local.
Yeah. And
And
David Allen Moore, right? I know he's up here.
he's joining us this year for the first time.
Okay.
We're so excited about that.
Cool.
Um, Robin Kesselman as well.
Sweet.
So
Um,
yeah, he started it in that summer, and we had such a good time.
yeah.
I remember specifically that year was like, I mean, we had a great group of applicants. Everybody just had a really open mind, and the faculty were great. That was my first time meeting some of these people who live in San Diego. I was only here for a year,
Right.
and it was really cool to see how you could see the students learning stuff, but also the faculty were learning from each other and from the students as well. And we had a really, really good time. And then we just kept it going. Jory is he's he's a very inspiring character because
Okay.
he's not only a great bass player, not only a very creative artist, but when he has a very clear vision, he's really good at putting it into play and putting it
Nice.
into action. And
Nice.
it was cool to watch him. I mean, he single-handedly did that the first year.
Feeling.
And we've been trying to keep it going ever since. Of course, the pandemic put that on hold for
Right.
three years, but we're
Yeah.
excited to be back.
Yeah. What were some of your personal takeaways from that first one when you're seeing the kids get energized, you're learning from the faculty? Is there anything you still recall as being a very specific takeaway for yourself as an educator?
Um, I remember maybe as I don't rem- well as a person and a musician, I remember Mark Dresser
Right.
did a really cool class about harmonics and how every chromatic note on the fingerboard lines up with a harmonic, and if you
Hmm.
can sort of train yourself to find them, it might help you map the fingerboard out, and therefore, long term help your intonation. That was pretty
Sure.
mind blowing to me. I'd never thought of it that way, and
Mm.
I took that home immediately and started working on it and figuring it out.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I really enjoyed that. I think the students really took a lot from that as well. But one of the big things I remember also seeing unfold was people who hadn't really performed in a group of basses before
Mm.
do that and feel what music making is, ensemble music making, sort of in the same instrument language. Like
Right.
it's not like you're playing in a string quartet or playing in a band. Like everybody's a bass player, so everybody's dealing with the same technical obstacles and trying to deliver a convincing musical performance. So that was
Yeah.
really cool. And seeing people, you know, dig deeper in themselves to emote something
That's
on
great.
stage.
Yeah, that's great. But I remember, man, it was years ago. I remember being in a master class with Mark Drescher, and it was held up here at a jazz club at the Blue Whale, and it was still. He didn't talk too much about harmonics. He talked a little bit about it, but we talked a lot about rhythm and like rhythm groupings and like kind of associating a rhythmic value as it would relate to like a pitch class, in 20th century.
Oh,
Yeah, it had a lot of levels to it. It was really, really cool. He's amazing. He's amazing.
he is.
I've been following him for years. What specific courses or classes do you teach at the Bass Fest? Which ones do you spearhead?
Me personally,
Yeah.
well, it kind of is all based on the structure of the bass fest.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe
the
let's start
structure
there.
is-
I should have started with that. Let's start with what
Oh,
is
no,
the
no, it's all
structure?
good. It's a good question. So Bass Fest is kind of structured around, we usually start the day with a group technique session or group warm-up session where one of the faculty members will run it. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's somebody else. We try to do a different person every
Okay.
day. And whatever that faculty wants to work on, whether it's left hand, right hand, combination, um, exercises, concepts, something that can you just cast out to the students and um, maybe it's something they've never heard before. Maybe it is that they can expand on and just kind of add tools to the toolbox, or maybe help them develop a warm up routine that they hadn't thought of yet, and just kind of get everybody into the mode for the day. And we follow that up the next hour with either a master class with probably one of the classical players, where usually three kids will get up and play a solo in front of everybody, and then the faculty will work with them like a master class setting in front of everybody. Or we will do like we'll have a jazz artist come in and work with the whole group on jazz technique, improvisation, learning a tune, soloing, and then the morning closes out with bass orchestra. So we usually get about 15 to 20. We've had more than 20 in the past, people at Bass Fest, and we'll just have large ensemble pieces where everybody's assigned a different part, multiple people on the part, and it operates just like a giant bass ensemble, bass orchestra. And we rehearse that every day.
Okay.
And that's part of the final performance. So me personally, I'll usually run one of the group technique sessions, and maybe one of the master classes. This year, we have a lot of different people, so everybody's going to be featured doing something.
That's cool. That's cool. Now, we did talk about this the other day, that it is open for all levels. How do you, as an educator, moderate repertoire that is engaging for a broad scope of levels?
Very good question. In our application, we have a list of questions to kind of get an idea of a student's ability, comfort level, exposure to repertoire. And once the application deadline closes, we look at everybody and we make assignments. We group them based on that, and then make assignments that are sort of appropriate to what we see in the questionnaires. It's not always, doesn't always work out perfect, and then we make a, so we've had in the past, some people feel, this one part is too easy for me, and then we'll just move them to another part or to a different ensemble, whatever. We want to make sure that we kind of meet the happy zone where they are challenged, but not challenged to the point where they're out of their league. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a short amount of time to, get something together. You got a week to get this music together, so it's not like they can spend months shedding on it, like it's a college semester or something. Have you had to bump people up or move people down because of, what came in on the questionnaire wasn't exactly what was being delivered? In either way, I'm not saying someone was trying to pull a fast one. Maybe it's they didn't feel confident in what they could do, and they were a stronger player than they had led you to believe.
It's a good question. The one person I remember who requested to move up to do something more challenging. I don't remember what their application said at the time.
Yeah,
but it was kind of like partway through, a couple of days in. But we were able to work it out. It was totally fine.
Okay. And then do they perform at the Shell? Is the performance at the...
No, everything is held at San Diego State University. So we do the performance on the stage at Smith Recital Hall.
Nice. And registration for the Bass Fest is now. And when does registration end?
It's set to close a week from today. So Monday, June 5th. If anybody's interested, there's 1 week left in the application process.
Okay, cool. And that's just the online questionnaire, and there's no self-tape submission or anything. It's just kind of a written situation.
There's no self-tape submission. I mean, if people want to do that voluntarily, that's totally fine. Yeah. Sometimes if we reach a point where maybe the application questions are not as clear, or we're trying to figure out like this person seems to be on the cusp of one ensemble or another. Sometimes we'll ask people to submit like a very short, like 60 seconds or less video clip playing anything that they feel comfortable playing, just so we
Okay.
can see, how they sound and what would make the most sense to place them.
Right, right. And then where do you what's the selection process for the bass orchestra? Where do you get the material?
We have Jory actually compiled a pretty extensive archive that we have, and we have it kind of in like a Google Drive that we
Okay.
we go through. Um, Another really key person who's helped us so much in the past, Jeremy Kurtz Harris, our principal bass player in San Diego Symphony. Um, he's also the bass professor at San Diego State, and he's a huge part of the organizational process as well. So he
Cool.
has a lot of repertoire as well in his library. So usually we'll just sit down and go through everything, test a couple things out, compare with the applicants, and make our selections from there.
From year to year, do you see a lot of the same uh not levels because it is open to all levels, but do you find yourself selecting material that's like kind of all at the same, all on the same playing field, so to speak, or some years like more advanced,
We have, I
repertoire?
would say, we usually have like end up with like a tiered level of ensembles just by the way things work out. There's usually one like, hotshot
Yeah.
group, and then one for more beginners, and then a couple of levels in between. So I would say maybe the difficulty of the rep kind of it always falls in those layers, even though we choose different pieces, different music each year.
Sure.
But because that's kind of the way it always works out with applicants, it hasn't really strayed. I mean, I can't think of we haven't had a year where we've had like a majority of beginner level music or a
Right.
year we've had a majority of super advanced music. It's always pretty evenly spread and graded up and down.
Yeah. What are some things that the applicants can take away from the camp that aren't directly bass technique involved? Are there some life lessons instilled in the applicants as well, or flexibility, stretching, or there's some other things besides fingering patterns and just technical exercises?
No, yeah, of course. Well, in the structure of the day, every day after lunch, we usually do lunch at noon.
Mm.
1 o'clock, we have a movement class,
Okay.
and it's designed number one, so after lunch, after eating, that you do something that you're moving your body a little bit. You're not stagnant, standing or sitting in one place. Um, Number two, gets you away from the movement classes away from the instrument, so it's just your body.
Yeah.
And number three, which I mean, I think is probably one of the most important things, is increasing people's body awareness and how they use it
Hmm.
and how they can counteract some of the asymmetries that we need to engage in to play our instrument. I
Right.
mean, unfortunately, I've searched for many years to try to find a perfect way, symmetrical way to play bass. And at this point, I can't find one. Sacrifices have to be made sometimes.
Yeah.
And the repetitive nature of what we do, if it goes unchecked, it could cause some injuries down the road.
Sure.
Maybe nothing serious, but stuff that you might have to deal with.
Sure.
And for personal experience, when I first started experiencing stuff like that, it shook me
Hmm.
because I had never had anything like that happen before. And then when you get confronted with, oh, this injury or this setback could affect how I make a living, it takes on a new
Yeah, yeah. It's
level of
got a little bit more
severity in your
weight to it.
mind.
What were those for you? Did you deal with some tendonitis issues or anything severe, or was it just
It
some like
was
tightness and things?
it was not anything severe, thankfully, but it was enough to like keep me out of taking auditions, a couple
Mm,
of auditions, and taking off a couple of weeks. I had some shoulder stuff, and it was a lot, man. I knew nothing
yeah.
about body awareness and taking care of yourself. When I wish that there was some kind of program in school that was mandatory in your schedule, whether it's yoga or anything, stretching, anything that would bring your mind into these places and realize that what you're doing repetitively needs to be undone. I would go to school, play for however many hours, put the bass away, go home, and just repeat that without undoing anything. And I got away with it for a long time.
Yeah, you can when you're young.
Right,
you can get away with
But
so much when you're young. Yeah.
I know, man. And then so when something does happen, you start to it freaked me out at the time.
Sure.
So I try to really make sure that even with my own private students, we talk about that kind of stuff, because I learned a valuable lesson for me, and I want to make sure that I'm passing on something to them.
Sure.
So that's what a major part of that class is designed for. And this year will be the first year that we're not. In the past, we've shared the week of Bass Fest with a string quartet festival. So some of the group classes near the end of the day would be shared with everybody, including the movement class. But this year is only Bass Fest. So we've the people we've hired, we've asked to sort of focus on bass-centric things, especially like shoulders, hips, legs, back, stuff like that.
Right.
So with the idea of learning a little bit more about how these body parts work, about how to stretch them and release them after playing and before playing, and monitor them long term, so that if you do end up getting in a situation where you have an injury, you have some tools available to you to mitigate that before you start going down other avenues.
Right. What are your daily practices to address that? Do you do yoga? Do you do whatever it might be to stay loose, to stay flexible?
Right.
What are your practices?
Well, when I first started going through the shoulder stuff, I did everything. I threw the book, as they say. Right. Problem. And when it started to get better, I wasn't really sure exactly what did
Which one, was the trick?
Was it some of them? Was it all of them? But after doing that and having it kind of flare up every once in a while, I do a long way to answer your question. I do a regular stretching routine twice a day that involves a lot of that stuff I learned.
Okay.
And I do I train at weight training once a week to strengthen a lot of those muscles that, in my case, have weakened over time because of what I do every day. Sure.
Have you noticed any direct relationship to diet, like avoiding foods that might cause inflammation, or like eating more spinach, which could be anti-inflammatory or something like that? Have you addressed it on a dietary level?
Not injury stuff necessarily. I mean, for me, it's always kind of hard to, especially when the injury is happening, it's kind of hard for me to pinpoint things. I try to just keep all that stuff under control all the time as best I can. Sometimes it's hard, but try to eat healthy all the time, so that is I don't have to think about that as much. But one of the main things I learned consistently in everything I did during the injury recovery was drink water. Drink a lot of. So and the diet thing, unfortunately, like everybody's body's different. So even if I did find something that cured my problem,
it doesn't mean that that's universal.
Exactly.
By any means. You're right.
Exactly.
We'll be back right after this.
All right, folks. All right, I'm doing a new thing. I'm offering up the middle of the show, right? The middle of the episode. I'm offering it up to you. That's right. If you have a new single out, you got a new album out, if you would simply like to get heard by the bass community, you give a shout out to your social media handles, your Spotify page, whatever it may be, hit me up. Stop by thebassshed.com and get featured on the Bass Shed podcast. All right, until y'all hit me up with your info so I can talk about you, I'm going to talk about my album. Go to thebassshed.com, click on the tab that says album, and there you can check out the album I did. Kind of released earlier this year. Collection of 7 tunes. I wrote 5 of them. One was composed by my dear late friend Zain Musa, and another one is a reimagining of Charlie Chaplin's tune "Smile." Yeah, it's all there. The instrumentation is myself playing electric and upright, drums, vibraphone, bass clarinet, and then Dr. Dan Cole plays guitar on a couple tracks. Really fun album. Those are some of my best friends and favorite musicians that I get to work with. Check it out. The album is Smile on Bandcamp. Go to thebasshed.com. Click on the tab Album.
Excellent, sir.
In addition to being involved in the Bass Fest and the San Diego Symphony, what are some of your creative outlets as an artist?
Well, I have my private students that I work with. I think it's cool that I've picked up a lot more things than what I learned in college, and I'm able to teach them with more tools than I learned when I first started.
I have so much to say about that, but yes, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead. Continue.
So
Continue. I'm interested to hear yours.
I try to push them too. Like, for example, my wife is a musician as well. She's the associate principal cellist in the orchestra.
Okay.
And we just did a studio recital with
Nice.
all of our students, plus another colleague, one of our violin colleagues. We did a studio recital just yesterday with all the students.
Oh, that's
we tried
cool.
to get them to perform. I didn't do much of that when I was first starting out, and I'm not saying all that anxiety from performing on stage might have been a little bit less in my life now, but I would have been a little more used to it if I did. So
Do you was that something that, I started as an electric player, so like being young, I was kind of used to being on stage. Like I remember getting bar gigs when I was like 19 and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I was like, I was already doing like 4-hour gigs and I wasn't even old enough to be in the place. So that I've never really had anxiety about that as much, but I have anxiety where it's something you've been preparing for so long. Like if you sit and really are working on this playlist or set list or program for a long time, a few months and stuff, and then it's time to deliver. I have a lot more anxiety about that than just showing up to a gig, and not knowing what we're going to do at all, and people are just calling tunes, we're playing jazz. Like, okay, that's fine. I'm way more comfortable like that than I am presenting something that's supposedly, prepared and curated and all that. But all that to say, the performance thing, was that something you struggled with in your early?
Oh, I feel like I'm still struggling with
Really?
it every day,
Okay.
performance anxiety. Yeah, it's tough. Not so much, way less in the group setting, but
Yeah.
for auditions and solo performances, yeah. It's something I feel like any musician is going to deal with forever. And
Sure. Yeah, the solo thing would freak me out.
yeah, well, that's what the kids were all doing yesterday. It was all solos.
Okay. Oh, okay.
They did a great job. All of them. It was really cool to
Yeah.
watch. So, starting them young with performing solo repertoire in a recital format, we stay on them with that. I also try to I like the idea of music paired with education, and I get out into the community and I coach at a couple of high schools and middle
Great.
schools in San Diego, because there's some really great bass players out there and really great music programs. But not everybody has access to the same resources, instruments, private lessons, all that stuff. And I go back to my time when I was, high school, middle school, elementary school learning, and I want to share as much with those age
Sure.
students as possible.
Sure. What were some of those early inspirations for you? First of all, actually, wait, I don't think we covered it. How old were you when you started playing the bass?
I was 8.
Wow, that's young. Was that your first instrument, or did you grow up playing piano?
No, I was just first instrument. I was in second grade. They did a demonstration of all the instruments, and the bass. The string. I'm sorry. There was no student bass player to demonstrate the bass, but they had students demonstrate the other instruments. So the teacher had to demonstrate it, and we were all sitting on the floor in the gymnasium, and he had to hold it over his head and walk through all of us. And I remember sitting there,
Yeah.
what?
Right.
And then, he plays the open E string and you can like feel it. And that was it. I chose it. So the next year, in the fall of third grade, I started playing.
Okay. Okay. That's cool, man. That's something that I'm passionate about too, because I do think that both double bass and electric bass are underrepresented at a really young school level, and like kids don't know, and a lot of times whoever's running the band program or the music program doesn't know enough about the instrument to talk about it, with any kind of integrity, I guess, and that's fine. That's fine. Like you can't know everything about every instrument, but I think it's cool that was presented to you at a young age, because that's rare. That's rare. I don't think, when I was in second grade and third grade, I might have saw like a diagram on the general music,
Yes.
in the band room for general music, and it's just like had all of them, and like, oh, the big one's the bass. Okay. That's it. I had never seen one or played one or heard one. So I think that's cool that you got that experience and that you're kind of paying it forward too. I think that's fantastic.
Try.
When was the kind of crossroads? Because going through an academic situation, you basically can only choose from classical or jazz. What was the crossroads to stay with classical?
In ninth grade, summer of ninth grade, I did this. Sounds kind of nerdy when you put it this way, but I did orchestra camp.
Okay.
And it changed my life, man.
That was it.
It was the School of Orchestral Studies in Saratoga, New York, upstate New York, and you work with members of the Philadelphia Orchestra. They have like a summer residency there. There's this big outdoor amphitheater, and I forget how long they were, a couple of weeks maybe. I don't remember how long they were there for, but it overlaps with the festival. So we got coached. I remember my first year. I did it 2 years in a row. My first year, Hal Robinson coached us,
yeah.
and he at the end, the final concert of every year at the time, they would do a concerto, and one of the Philly orchestra people would play the concerto. So they did the Dragonetti concerto that year, and Hal played with us.
Okay.
So that just blew my mind.
That was it. Yeah.
And being there, I mean, you play a lot of rep, and we played like tapa style. Like we wouldn't play a whole symphony, but we would do like the second and fourth movement of Beethoven 7.
Okay.
The third movement of Beethoven 5, parts of Copia of Romeo and Juliet, parts of Chaik 4. What else? I forget what else. Just like Symphony Fantastique, just all these greatest hits of classical music.
Yeah.
And
it's like the Wow 98 of classical.
Exactly. Now that's what I call classical music.
Yeah. Right.
So and then we had a very inspiring conductor, and after seeing the Philadelphia, and the other thing was they would take us to Philly orchestra concerts, so we would hear not only the movements that we worked on, but like the entire pieces, outdoors in the summertime. It was like so cool.
Yeah.
And it struck many chords for me. The first one being working with the Philadelphia orchestra guys and playing all that rep and learning that, you can do this for a living. Like you can play all this music and make a living doing it. That hooked me. And then being around orchestra nerds, and realizing that it wasn't just one type of person. They were all different types of people there. And I was very lucky in high school where I had a pretty wide range of friends from all different types of social pockets.
Yeah. I feel like most musicians in high school do. Like the jocks are with the jocks, and I was in high school back in the 90s when things were still very much like that. I have no idea if high schools are like that anymore, but you had the jocks, you had the skater kids, you had like the gangster guys, you had all these little like sub communities. But I feel like the musicians always kind of floated.
We can weave in and out of them pretty easily. We
were never really cool enough to be one of them, but we weren't dumb enough or nerdy enough to not be one of them. They all just kind of like, they tolerated us, and we tolerated them, and then we'd move on. Yeah.
Yes, and being in that orchestra camp united me with all like similar people, and
Mm.
I kind of, not that I never felt at home, but that really clicked for me. Like, wow, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. So at that moment, I decided that I wanted to do music, and
Okay.
I focused my energy toward that. As far as choosing classical or jazz, I was always taught through the classical lens. But when I was a kid, like when I first started, my uncle gave me a bass guitar, and I was too short, too little to hold it.
Oh
I still
yeah.
have it. It's a 1983 Ibanez Roadstar. It's like
Dude, I
not
almost just bought one of those. I love
but
those basses.
so
Yeah.
solid, man. It
Yeah.
still sounds
Yeah.
fine even now. And so my dad, who's not a musician, none of my family are musicians. My dad is a big classic rock guy. So we
Nice.
used to, my brother and I, when we would go, my grandparents lived like 30 minutes away. So we would like go there for dinner, and then my dad would drive us home. And he'd turn on the classic rock station and be like, "All right, guys, let's play the game." So we're gonna just
Drop the needle. Classic rock. Drop the
listen to
needle.
the song, and you tell me who the band is.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and he would always say, listen to the voice. You can always
Hmm.
tell, listen to the quality of the voice. And then you start to develop a palette for that
Sure.
music. And then I got the bass guitar and I would start figuring out like
Okay.
stuff by ear. And then my dad would take the game to another level in the car and be like, listen to the bass line. And he would sing
Ah.
along with it. And, for not a trained musician, that's a pretty cool skill that he was
Yeah.
able to do and bring out of me. So all the time studying classical, I was also playing in bands, and I
Okay.
played in the high school jazz band and stuff, but I was not like um formally educated in that way. So I
I don't
just
know if
kind of
anybody
rode the
is.
wave of classical.
Yeah, I don't know if there's even a formal education for it.
Exactly.
Really, what I think happened is schools have tried to create a formal education for it as a money grab.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, well, look at all these students that we could be making money from, all these people that are interested in instrument X, whatever it is. Huh, we could be making money off that if we offer a, whatever, Motown class, or if we. And none of those dudes knew what they were doing. They were just doing it, you know?
Yeah,
Uh,
right,
It's
right.
like, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about institutionalized education in general. Um, but yeah, there was no formal education for it. You didn't need to know. I think the great bass players that came out of that taught themselves because they were listening to who else was doing it and what came before them. But there's no
Exactly.
real formal education for it, especially jazz. Definitely no formal education until schools got a hold of it, and then that's a whole other topic about how it came up with this street music in Louisiana, and now it's like for rich white kids to go to at these prestigious schools. Like that's not that's not the music. That's not the music. Anyways, rant over.
No,
Um,
not at all.
what? So you like pairing music with education? You're teaching. I think it's great that. Have you seen like the light bulb go off in kids? The light bulb that you got when you were younger, and this bulb goes off of, oh man, I want to do that. Have you gotten to see that happen in another generation, in a younger generation?
I've seen a light bulb go off well, I've just seen it go off. I'm not 100% sure where it has taken
Yeah.
people in the long run, but um, this past year, so with the high schools that I go to, they have their orchestra music to work on, and sometimes it's either like way too easy
Mm-hmm.
or really hard, and we have to spend a lot of time on it. So for the groups that end up spending a lot of time on it, I always try to throw them a bone and do like some kind of like musical treat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of them don't take private lessons. So I use the Mahler one solo from George Vance.
Okay.
And it's like a quick crash course in thumb position,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be played like a round and get the whole group to learn it and play it through, and you see their eyes light up like first just the sonic uh structure that they're building for themselves of all the bass players playing the solo in a round,
Yeah.
but also the feeling of like accomplishing something that they've never done before.
Yeah,
Is
as far as range on the instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because none of the orchestra parts have them in thumb position. Many of them have never even played in thumb position
Sure.
before. And thumb position can be intimidating when you
Sure.
first learn it. I mean, that's one of the great things I like about the George Vance book is it gets introduced pretty early on in the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, I was just
You know?
looking through that. I know some friends of mine teach out of it pretty regularly, and I finally checked it out a few days ago, actually. I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm envious that it wasn't really as well known when I first started.
I don't.
Um,
When was it published? I didn't look that up. I should have looked that up.
I should look it up too because I
That's
don't
like
know.
that's something that would interest me. I'm surprised I didn't, just out of curiosity. Uh, yeah, I remember just schlepping through the Samandal, which was
Yeah, Samandal,
super
Belay.
dry.
I mean, not that that stuff is bad. I mean, it
The information is
works.
not, or the presentation of it is. It's all very well put together, but uh, it can be a little stale. Sometimes it's just a mouthful of saltines. Just playing through these.
Yeah, right.
I like the
I
Vance thing because the Vance thing has you playing, and then you're getting into duets, so you can be playing with your teacher or a peer. I think it focuses on the performance a little bit more than
and
just the information.
right, and some of the techniques in there, like pivots
Hmm.
and playing in thumb position, a lot of that stuff I didn't learn or encounter it until I was in college,
Right.
and they were taught more as like, well, this is a quick trick you can learn to deal with this passage.
Yeah.
But to, and to me, I always thought like, oh, I can't teach kids that stuff. It's too advanced. And then I got the Vance books and like they start teaching that almost immediately. And duh, like kids are smart. They can
Yeah.
handle that. And not only that, but it gives them way more tools and options available to them in their playing to then apply to more advanced repertoire. So can't say enough good things about the George Vance method.
Yeah.
Love it.
Agreed. And I think it's when I've looked at different method books and stuff, I kind of was approaching it with the idea of it's going to be kind of comprehensive in the way that, if that's the correct word, that Samandal is, where you start here and you work your way up and you work your way through. And I don't really think I got hip to the idea of not all books work that way until I started in on Petrarchy. And they're just kind of no order to this book, Then I realized, like, okay, I mean, there is an order to that book, but it's not the same kind of progression throughout the book. Yeah, I agree. The George Vance book is great. Is that something you teach out of a lot? Is that
I
your
do.
preferred? Yeah.
I love it.
That seems to be the case. That seems to be the case.
But I like to do it in conjunction with other things. So I use the Belay book a lot. I mean, that's what I started with.
Oh, really?
That's the thing, man. With
There's
teaching,
3 of those,
like,
right?
there are
Yeah.
many of those.
Oh, is there more
All
than
for
3? I
different
only
things,
knew
all
about
for
3.
different things. I mean,
Right.
there's like the regular, like the basic technique one. There's one for bowing variations. There's one for scales and etudes, and different volumes of each. There
Okay.
are many books of them. But I think that the sort of structural aspect of Samandal and Belay can kind of fall into that same thing, coupled with the more like not well, they're not advanced, but the techniques applied in the George Vance book.
Yeah,
And
he
the
calls
fact
it
that
progressive. Let's call him
we'll
progressive.
call it progressive,
He does.
progressive
Why not?
techniques. Exactly, that's a good word.
Yeah.
And the Vance books are all like pieces. That's all like you're always playing music, and they have piano accompaniment and stuff. So it's a really like I like doing that hand in hand. It really, I've noticed a lot of kids like they start to define the fingerboard well and also learn these techniques and maneuver things a little bit with a little bit more agility than only having one or the other.
Yeah.
So, but I continue to learn. It doesn't work for every student. Every student's different. Sometimes you have to improvise. You can't just like prescribe the same thing to every person and expect to get the same result.
Yeah, I think that's something that students should know about, I think, from in anything, that they're not just going through a curriculum when you study with a private teacher, that you are, that hopefully if the teacher's good, they'll be really kind of lining up with how the student gets information, what's working well for them, and then like it'll be catered to them. Because I've definitely been a student in some lessons with some high-profile bass players, and it just felt like I was going through a curriculum. And I'm just like, yeah, no, this is dumb. Like, this, I feel like you're just feeding me the thing, man. Like, this isn't really the direction I want to go, and this isn't why I'm here with you, and the whole thing. So I think it's very cool that you're sensitive to where the student's at and making sure that they get specific one-on-one training, because that's the point of that. Applications are still open for San Diego Bass Fest. That is at sandiegobasefest.com. What's the price of it? I mean, like, I'm on the website right now. I'm here, but just so people know, it's actually, I was shocked that it's a lot cheaper than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it's $600.
Yeah, it's great.
It's 5 days, 9 to 5. So it's a full day of bass stuff. It culminates with a performance of the bass orchestra, and also the afternoon portion of each day is devoted to small ensembles. So we were talking before about how to assign people parts and stuff. We end up breaking all the students up into like quartets and trios, and they work on a piece with a coach, a faculty coach. They work with the same coach all week.
Cool.
And they present all those individual groups on the recital as well.
And then again, the dates for the entire week are, when does it start and when does it end?
Tuesday, June 20th through Saturday, June 24th.
All right. That was my talk with PJ Cinque. Man, I love that he got kind of introduced to the instrument at such a young age, and I think it was really cool that he started playing in second grade. Like, man, that's amazing. I was too busy just riding my bike and crashing it into brick walls. Like, who knows what I was up to? Definitely nothing as productive as starting a career. I think that's great. I think that's wonderful. And the singing the bass lines thing, like just starting to train the ear at such a young age to focus, from the ground up and listen to the bass. I don't think I was hip to it. I wasn't hip to like starting to listen like that until I kind of heard the bass isolated for the first song, for the first time, and then I could understand, okay, that was the bass, and then I could hear the bass in the music, but I wasn't just like singing bass lines right out of the gate, all fantastic things that I do think bass educators, whether if you're a part of an institution or if you're giving private lessons, those are things that could be used with students, is to have them just picking out lines and singing them. I think that's great. And yes, the San Diego Bass Fest happening June 20th through 24th. Stop by sandiegobasefest.com for more information. And that's about all I got for this one, folks. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you on the next one in a minute.